Welcome to Commander Central, episode 341, and today we're going over some of our favorite cards from the upcoming Brothers War set. I'm Max.
And I am not Dana. I am Chris.
Hey, Chris, we're at it alone together today.
I know.
Dana let us run the house. He's on his way to the MTG Summit, I believe.
Yeah, that's what he was telling me last time I talked to him. Somewhere in like Salt Lake or something.
Yep, going out to Utah. He gets to go play Magic all weekend, so good for him. And hopefully he doesn't.
Good for him. I mean, awfully lucky.
True. He'll probably do a pre-release while he's out there, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, that's this weekend.
It is.
Maybe I'll go to pre-release tomorrow.
Maybe. I mean, I might try to go this weekend. I have a couple other holiday-esque gatherings I have to go to, but...
The weather's supposed to be so nice this weekend for hunting, so I might just be hunting all weekend. I haven't decided yet.
There you go. Is it actually supposed to get cool, finally? Versus our 70-plus degrees we've had the last few days?
High of 30s, man.
Ugh.
Yeah, can't wait.
Have you shot a deer yet?
No, because this weather sucks. I've seen a few of them, but I passed up on them, so...
Yeah, my coworker shot a 9-point, I think, last weekend. So, he's happy. Good for all the hunters out there. Go shoot your deer, or your game of choice. If you out there want to tell us about your pre-release experiences or your favorite fall activities, such as hunting, how would they do that, Chris?
Well, you can reach us on a multitude of social media platforms. You can find us on Twitter at CMDR Central. You can search us up on Facebook, CMDR Central. You can find us on YouTube by searching CMDR Central, and you can find us online at cmdrcentral.com.
You can also head over to patreon.com/CMDR Central and check out our reward tiers. Like always, we just want to say thank you to everybody who does support us on Patreon, along with everybody who just tunes in and listens every week and hits that vote button. It means a lot to us, so thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, Chris, are you ready to go to war?
I've always been ready to be to war, but what kind of war are we talking about?
A brothers' war.
Oh no.
So, like most of our set reviews, we're just going to talk about cards we like and see what each other thinks about them.
Okay.
So, Chris, you can go first.
Sure, okay, fine. I was going to say trash card as soon as you said whatever card you were about to say, but that didn't work out for me. Sure. So, as Max said, we usually just choose a bunch of cards that we enjoy and stuff like that. And I'm actually going to skip the legendary, and I'm going to go to the last card on my list. And this overall set, for those of you who have not looked at it, there's a lot of artifacts in it. A lot of artifacts, or cards that do something with artifacts or create artifacts. So, quite a few of my cards are actually going to be artifacts. So I'm going to start with a 1-drop artifact that is an uncommon. It is called Mishra's Research Desk. It is a 1-drop artifact that has an activate ability of 1 tap, sacrifice Mishra's Research Desk, exile the top 2 cards of your library, choose one of them, and until end of the next turn, your next turn, you may play that card. So this is your typical red weird impulse draw thing or whatever that red does. I can't think of what the proper name is for it.
That is impulse, correct.
Yep. So it does, red stuff. This card also has Unearth for 2 mana, 1 colorless and a red. For those of you who do not know what Unearth is, it says return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step, or if it would leave the battlefield. Unearth only as a sorcery. So you're going to get to be able to use this card twice and get to look at 4 cards overall and be able to cast 2 of them. I feel that this card is extremely good. The mana that you put into it to do this ability is next to nothing, so it's just working in your favor overall. What are your thoughts on it, Max?
Yeah, I really like this. I loved all the impulse draw cards in this set. I like that we're getting more of them, and I think red, I feel like that might be the path red is going for the foreseeable future versus your Faceless Lootings and Cathartic Reunions. More of the impulse draw, which I know Dana is a huge fan of. But even in EDH, a 1-drop draw 2 is great. 2 mana draw 2, essentially.
Yes, and it's also, like an artifact. So if you're playing anything with Delirium or anything, you're getting value of looking at 2 cards plus throwing an artifact into your graveyard to trigger Delirium. While you could be unearthing it and losing the artifact, I mean, either way, I like cards that have a multiple purposes to them, where you can use them again out of the graveyard or out of exile or something like that. Just because, if you can use a card twice, the more value it's going to have in the game.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and sometimes you get land screwed and you need to play out of your graveyard. You're pretty good at that with your Lusha deck. So yeah,
Yep,
I love this card and can't wait to see it at the table.
agreed.
Okay, I will start with my first one, and I will start with a legendary creature.
Oh boy.
My one of my favorite legendary creatures from this set is Gwenna, Eyes of Gaia. This is 2 and a green for a legendary creature, Elf Druid Scout. It's a 2/3 and has a couple abilities here. It has a tap ability that lets you add 2 mana in any combination of colors, but you can spend this mana only to cast creature spells or activate abilities of creatures or creature cards.
That makes sense. I mean, it's a green creature, so, green wants to cast creatures, so why not have a ramp of some sort like that?
Right. Its other ability says when you cast a creature spell with power 5 or greater, put a +1/+1 counter on Gwenna, Eyes of Gaia, and you untap it.
That's unfortunate.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that this is a cheap costed mana dork. Now, in the past, I'm not a huge fan of mana dorks. I've said that. I still kind of stick to it, but the fact that later in the game, you're going to be able to use this hopefully a couple times a turn, especially in mono green, and you're going to make this creature bigger with every card you cast with it, every creature you cast with it, or activate that ability on your, what's the stupid Hydra Broodmaster? That has an ability, right?
I don't remember.
That's
I don't think Broodmaster does, but it probably does, and I'm so wrong.
Now I need to know. I feel like that's the one that you can monsters for X. It is!
Okay. I was thinking that was one of them that comes in, it's an X cost, and then...
Double the counters or something every
like
combat.
That,
yeah. So yeah, I think in a mono green deck, this is a great type of mana dork outside of your normal 1-drop Llanowar Elves and stuff like that.
Agreed. I mean, it's got good value, so 2/3 for 3. As a commander, though, I'm not sure if it's that good. Because you look at overall green commanders, and green is just super powerful with commanders. So I think that, there is a better commander in this set for the same mana value in green, and that's the Titania. She's a 3-drop that does, wild shenanigans with land. So if you're looking at, like, the overall value for that, the card itself, then I think Titania is better. But if you want to play wild shenanigans, this card is pretty good. Now, in the 99, I definitely think this card is probably going to get played. Especially if you're playing a big monster type of deck, or like you were just talking about Hydra Broodmaster. So any type of Hydra deck, this is probably going to go in because you're casting X drop creatures that are probably huge. So why not have a way of adding more mana to it, plus untapping and making this creature bigger at the same time?
Yeah, I love this card. It definitely is going into one of my decks in the 99, but maybe 2 of them if I actually alter one of those 40k decks. I might put it in that one as well, the Tyrannoid deck. Tyrannid deck, the X spell one. Okay, Chris, what is the next card you'd like to discuss?
I'm going to jump over, and I'm going to jump into the color of white.
Wait, White? Who are you and what have you done with my co-host?
Right, so I'm going to say this now, but I believe that this set, I think white got the most cards in it. Like, when I was looking at the overall previews, white seemed to have the most synergistic cards, the most powerful cards. Now, each color got some really good cards, but I think the overall scheme of everything, white seemed to be the strongest in this set. You look at the artifacts, they had prototype. You look at the theme of soldiers and everything, and white just seems to be like what they were focusing on in this set, which I love because it just made me, excited about it overall. So, for the card that I'm going to talk about here, it is called Union of the Third Path. It is a 3-drop instant that reads, draw a card, then gain life equal to the number of cards in your hand. Now, everyone's probably looking at this card and, thinking of what I'm talking about right now, and they're like, that's just a weak cantrip, blue does it 100 times better, which is true, but we're talking about white here. Now, this is just literally a cantrip in white, which caught me off guard. Literally you just draw a card for, something, but you're going to gain life off of it, and it's not something that requires creatures, because most of the white's cantrip cards that they play like this is like, target creature gets +1/+0 and indestructible and draw a card or something like that. Whereas this is just straight up draw a card. So I'm curious if this is maybe a glimpse into the future of what Wizards is trying to approach with white. They're going to start giving us little types of pieces of card draw like this in white, which would be awesome. Now, a lot of decks, I suppose, when you're playing white, you don't have a whole lot of cards in your hand, so you're not going to gain a lot of life off of this. But just a cantrip card in general has got my hopes up as to what white's going to bring us in the future.
Yeah, I really like where white is in this set. I think it has a lot of cool cards, and it deals with a lot of, like, small mana value stuff. Like you said, this is a cool way to introduce a cantrip, but I definitely think you'll see this in a lot of, like, white X control decks. You probably won't see this in, like, a Boros deck, but you'll probably see it in, like, an Azorius deck. I might try it in, like, Dromoka, where I tend to always have cards in my hand, just because I'm dropping big 6 drops instead of, a bunch of little 1/1s.
Yeah, even if you have, like, 3 cards in your hand when you play this, you're going to draw a card that puts you at 4, and you're going to gain 4 life for 3 mana. I mean, it just, overall, it's like a weird little cantrip card in white that white just doesn't have. And that's what I saw this immediately, and I'm like, oh, is this what they're going to try to start doing going forward? Because that would be awesome.
Yeah, this will be interesting. I'm sure everyone will at least try playing it because it says draw a card on it in white.
Right? I'll try it. Worst case scenario, it is going to be a phenomenal card for, like, limited purposes.
Yeah, that definitely looks like a limited bomb. Good card. Maybe bomb's a bit of an exaggeration. Okay, I'm also going to talk about a white card, technically. I'm going to talk about Platoon Dispenser. This is a 5-mana artifact. It's a artifact creature construct. It's a 4/6, and at the beginning of your end step, if you control 2 or more other creatures, draw a card, and then you can pay 3 and a white to create a 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature token, and it has Unearth for 2 and 2 white. First thing that caught my eye on this is it's an end step trigger, so you don't feel like you're wasting your turn playing it, waiting for that draw to happen. Granted, you need to have 2 other creatures, but there's a better chance of you getting it right away versus having to hopefully have this wait around.
True.
Second, it helps you meet those criteria. It lets you make the bodies to trigger that draw at the end step. Probably something you're not doing the turn you drop it, especially in mono white, but it's a great just way to flood that board over time. And then Unearth. This isn't something that, you might bring back immediately, but the fact that you can bring it back right on the card is really nice.
Yes. I really like this card a lot. So, yes, you are limited into mono white, or I shouldn't say mono white, pardon, a white X of some sort. And there's actually a few cards on my list that also were within the white X range. I was looking at this, and the first decks that pop into my mind that this would fit in really, really well are your Boros artifact decks that are playing a bunch of small creatures or whatever, but are lacking, like, your card draw outlets. And this is a really good card draw outlet. It is also a big body on an artifact that, if you are in the Boros theme, you can already return it with other cards, and you can save the Unearth for later, which is, super powerful in my opinion. If you can return this multiple times to get multiple card draw triggers out of it, that's pretty cool. Not to mention, it is a beast at a 4/6. So, I mean, it's not, easily removable, aside from, everyone plays artifact removal. But as a creature, it's not easily removable. So, I mean, this card overall, I think, fits all the criteria of what you're looking for in that type of deck. Now, in a mono white, type of deck, let's take Dana's Jeru deck, for instance. He's playing a bunch of planeswalkers with very few creatures in there. I could see this possibly making the cut in there as a card draw outlet due to the fact that all the planeswalkers that he plays, as you look at majority of mono white planeswalkers, all the Elspeths create tokens. I do believe Ajani does something with counters and stuff like that majority of the time. So, I mean, this would just fit into that theme of, okay, Elspeth creates tokens, Ajani makes this thing bigger so it's harder to kill, and you just start swarming the board out. So it might be something for, Dana to consider. I'm not sure if it's something that he would, because 5CMC is higher on the chain of things, whereas you're, rather put that money in or that mana into planeswalkers, but we'll see where it goes with him.
Yeah, I doubt it will just because it's not a planeswalker.
Yeah, I mean, that is unfortunate, but
just thinking how Dana thinks, or attempting to think like Dana thinks. It's not a walker, but I like that argument for trying it at least.
Yeah, that's just, I mean, it's something I would probably, if I talk to him about it, get a chance to, my argument would be, it is a card draw engine is what you would look at it as, more of than being a creature type of thing.
Right. And I just want to point this out before the internet is probably already yelling at us, but Unearth does say if it were to leave the battlefield, you exile it and you get rid of it at the next end step. So this isn't something that will be sticking around long. So when you do Unearth it, you better have those 2 other creatures on the board to trigger that ability.
Yeah, the cool thing is, too, Unearth gives it haste. So, I mean, then you have a 4/6 beater also that you can swing with if need be.
Yeah. Okay. What is your next card, Chris?
I'm scrolling through to see what color I want to jump into because I have a lot of cards on my list.
You do.
Um, so I'm gonna jump into another artifact. I had just brought up prototype. So this is actually a prototype card, and this card is called Steel Seraph. It is a 6-drop 5/4 with flying that reads: at the beginning of combat on your turn, target creature you control gains your choice of flying, vigilance, or lifelink until end of turn. Now, as I just said, prototype. What is prototype? Everyone's asking me. Well, prototype is a new ability on some of these artifacts, and it reads: you may cast this spell with a different mana cost, color, and size. It keeps its original abilities and types. So you're going to cast it for a different cost, and it's going to be a different type of creature, but keeps its original abilities. So the prototype on this card is 1 colorless and double white to create a 3/3 that would have flying and then the ability of, at the beginning of your combat, you give a creature these abilities. So that right there is what caught me off guard. Is like, okay, now I have a 3/3 flyer for 3 that can give another creature flying, vigilance, or lifelink until end of turn. Or give itself that. You know, you could give it vigilance or lifelink if you had like a haste outlet. I think it's super efficient. White has always been known for cards like this. We can take like, was it Odric had an ability like that where, you know, if a creature had flying, you can get flying out or something like that. So anything like that is, I think it's really powerful to use within a white X deck. Overall, the card's probably not like a bomb as people are saying or anything like that, but I'm loving the prototype ability, you know, where 3 mana for 3/3, that's super efficient. You can't get much better than that. So I would love to see if people are going to play a card like this or play more of the prototype cards because the versatility of the card is huge.
Yeah, I really love prototype. The ability, I like it's making all these artifact creatures more of a modular card. So you can either get that early game if this is in your opening hand, or you can play it late game for the full 6 mana. I love this card too. It instantly reminded me of Angelic Skirmisher from Gatecrash.
Ooh, okay.
That's the one that is a 6-drop, 4/4 with flying, and at the beginning of each combat, you choose Vigilance, Lifelink, or First Strike, and creatures you control gain that ability. So this is kind of a not as powerful version, yeah. But I mean, I'm kind of contemplating this for Jamoka just because it is a 3/3 for 3 that can give something Vigilance. Like, that's huge when you play a battle cruiser type deck where you don't play a lot of creatures, so you need to be able to block every turn.
Yeah, one of your creatures, you know, let's say it's like I don't know if you still play Dramoka the Eternal in there or whatever, but if you do, you know, you trigger that when it attacks, turns it into a 7/7 while you had decided to get, or a 7, yeah, I think it's 7/7 because it comes out as a 5/5 or whatever.
Yep, and bolsters too.
Yep, you could give it lifelink then, because the thing doesn't have lifelink to begin with. So then you got a 7/7 lifelink beater that you could come in with too. So I mean, that's, you know, lifelink is huge. I think that I think they kind of underestimate that when you are playing a battle cruiser-esque type deck.
Yeah, very, very much. So I love this card. I really like the art too. I hope there's a full frame version.
So I'm looking at this card, and when you look at it, I'm like, it looks like a bug of some sort, you know, like whatever. It's an angel. I'm like, this is not an angel. It's like a bug. That's what it looks like.
It looks like Iron Man meets an angel.
It is pretty cool art. I do like it as well.
Yeah. Okay, my next card is going to be... I'm going to talk about your favorite color, Chris.
Oh boy.
We're going to talk about red.
Ooh. Oh, this card is awesome. I almost put it on my list too.
It's awesome because it's over the top. And that's actually what the card name is, over the top. It's 5 red for a sorcery. Each player reveals a number of cards from the top of their library equal to the number of non-land permanents they control. They put all permanent cards revealed this way onto the battlefield and the rest into the graveyard. This just feels like EDH fun. Like when I think of like carefree, fun, casual commander, this is the card I think about. Just because it is kind of cool to say, okay, everybody, you know, flip the top 20 cards of your deck and see what happens. And it's symmetrical, so it's not just you, not just your opponents. It's also a really unique way to maybe mill out an opponent in mono red or in red X decks.
Yes.
Because they go to the graveyard. They just don't go back into the library, which I find really cool as well.
Yep. The thing I like about this card is, you know, like you were saying, you know, it's commander fun type of card, but you can build the deck around cards like this, where if you play more of a permanent base deck, which usually red is, unless you're playing a Spellslinger-esque, so you're going to have more of the permanents, you're going to have more of the artifacts, that kind of stuff, because that's what you need to make red work, and this card just plays into that. Now, this could backfire hard on you as you're looking over at the Elf Ball deck and you're like, oh, let's just go over the top. And the Elf Ball player's like, "Mwah!" And then the game's over. But that could happen.
Right. But I think that's the point of this card. Like, you just do it to have fun. Like, there was a group of people at our LGS years ago that they did the Pixis of Pandemonium. Remember that? Like, every
Yes,
turn,
I did.
every turn, someone put a counter on it, and then someone decided when to crack it. And
Yep.
that's how the whole game went. This is what this card reminds me of.
Yep. I can tell everyone right now that Dana does not like this card.
I was
Guarantee
just
it.
going to ask you, where does this fall on the insurrection scale for Dana?
I don't think it'd be the insurrection scale. I think it's just because it offers too much value to your opponents. Because there are going to be times when you draw this card and you look around and you're actually the one who has the least amount of permanents on the battlefield. And it's just going to help everyone else way more than it would help you. Now, granted, you could, when you flip all the cards, your opponents could flip just a whole bunch of lands. Well, I mean, suppose lands can still come out because it doesn't say just any permanent. Yeah,
Yep,
the
any
lands still
permanent.
hit the battlefield. But, if an opponent hits 6 sorceries or something like that, I mean, that it could happen that way too, which is unfortunate for them, but it works out in your favor. But I don't think that's ever going to happen that way.
No, I don't think it will either. But yeah, or else you could be feeding the graveyard deck at your table. That also doesn't help, and they have
That would suck.
living death in their hand or something that you don't know about.
Oh, that would suck.
Okay, Chris, on to you.
All right, let's see. Where should we go with that? We'll do this one. So I'm going to go into another artifact here. And this artifact is actually legendary. And it costs you 3 mana to play it. And it's called Urza's Silex. And my exact notes on here is I mean, I find this card very amusing because I look at it on the terms of Nivinral's Disc. So this legendary artifact has an activate ability of 2 and double white to tap it, exile it, and each player chooses 6 lands they control, and then destroy all other permanents. Activate only as a sorcery. So, that's kind of like, yeah, whatever, it's okay, But then it has an ability where whenever Urza's Silex is put into exile from the battlefield, you may pay 2. If you do, search your library for a Planeswalker card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle. So that right there just gives you the value over everybody else. Now, having a 4 mana board wipe, overall it's going to be 7 because it costs 3 to cast, is super powerful. White's usually 4 mana board wipes, all that fun jazz, but it hits everything. And I think that's where the game has been moving lately. Like a lot of games that I've been sitting down in and playing, you've been looking for mass removal of either artifacts or enchantments or something like that. And this just fits all of that in one go. And that's what I really like about it. Not to mention you can just put it on the board and you don't even have to crack it, even though it says only at sorcery speed, and just play the political game and just pass the turn and see how people want to play that. Because they're like, okay, next turn he's just going to sit with this and I can't really play into the board because it's going to exile everything. So I have to play, a little bit more conservative. And I mean, it's going to be a pretty cool card to see be played.
Yeah, I like that it's destroy and not exile. I think Farewell was a cool card, but I think that was a little bit too much.
Oh, it was like 4 white to cast, though.
True. But still, that was a weird way of, is this the way they're going to be going for a while?
Yes.
I think this is cool. I think if you're running Planeswalkers in your deck, this is a great way to go get one. And it definitely is, like you said, it's a rattlesnake card. Do I really want to go down to 6 lands and start over, or do I want to try to remove this, knowing that you have to do it at sorcery speed?
Yep. Yeah, it's like, do you want to waste a removal spell on something like this, or do you want to waste it on the doubling season or the Mirari's Wake or whatever else that's on the field that's actually working, overtime for someone else, whereas this is just something that's sitting there that's going, well, if you guys get too far ahead, I'm going to reset the board state.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I'm going to move on to my next card, and that is Hercule's Final Meditation. This is 4 and 3 blue for an instant, and it says, as long as it's not your turn, this spell costs 3 more to cast. So it's going to cost 10 overall if you're doing this on an opponent's turn. And it says, return all non-land permanents to their owner's hands, and then end the turn. So, Cyclonic...
I like your note right there.
I feel like this is not a fixed Cyclonic Rift, but it's the only card that really came to mind. maybe
It was
we're
the first
fine.
thing that popped in my mind when I read this card too was Cyclonic Rift, and I'm like, okay, so it's 7 mana. Okay, it does this, does that. But it hits everybody, so it doesn't just hit your opponents, it hits you
Right.
too. But it ends the turn. I mean, that is so good in my opinion.
So for 10 mana, stopping your opponent's turn, is that worth it?
It could very well be. I mean, it seems really good.
Because time stop is 6. And
But
that
this
just
also bounces everything. So it's just like, if your opponent, let's say your opponent's going ham with like playing a whole bunch of cards or something, and you bounce everything, then you end the turn and they have like 30 cards in their hand or something dumb,
and
they have to discard.
Discard them all. Yep.
They can't replay them. So I mean, that's so good. Oh,
10
oh
mana is
boy.
so much though, and it's triple blue.
I know it is.
Like,
I
this
mean,
feels like what Cyclonic Rift was originally supposed to be without the end the turn clause. It should have just been 4 and 3 blue was your overload cost.
yeah. I mean, it is definitely a toss up. People are gonna say, Cyclonic Rift is just way better, and I agree with
And
them 100%.
Same. I totally agree. I'm joking when I say this is a better Cyclonic Rift.
Yep. I definitely think that this is a card that you could put in place of Cyclonic Rift, especially if people, like we've discussed it before, that Rift is so strong, so it could be one of those cards, if you're playing in a select meta where you guys want to depower stuff or, make things a little bit more fair, this would be a good substitution for that. It could also just be in a deck where you're just playing control aspect, where you're playing a bunch of mana rocks and stuff, and you're just like, okay, I'm going to bounce everything. End of the turn, now it's my turn, and I'm just going to play all my stuff back out there and sit back type of thing, and just, make people think about what you're going to do. You play this, you play Washout, you play all the other fun cards like that too, and, play that annoying game.
Mass bounce tribal. There we go.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm interested to see if I ever see this get played.
I think you will. I'm just not sure what deck's going to play it. Honestly, like a Mizzix deck, I would definitely be playing it in. I mean, the ability to reduce the cost of this is pretty dumb, where it's just triple blue. I mean, that would suck, but...
That would be the ideal place to play this.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm interested to see and hear what people think about this card if they actually try playing it.
Okay.
All you, sir.
All right, let's go into... Sure, let's go into red. I got a couple red cards on here.
What? You have red cards? I'm so surprised.
Red wasn't like super powerful. It's definitely got some nice cards in it. A few cards in it that I really, really like. There's a legendary creature in there. I really like the mono red Mishra a lot. All that. But these were just, your basic cards that I thought would be played in a majority of red decks. And I'm going to start with the first one, and that is Visions of Phyrexia. It is 2 and double red for an enchantment. And it reads, at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. So literally this is Outpost Siege all over again. 4 mana, do what you need to do. But in my opinion, this card is going to replace everyone's Outpost Siege unless you are using the second mode of Outpost Siege quite often. And that is the reason that this card, I believe, will be replacing that, is that the second ability on it reads, at the beginning of your end step, if you didn't play a card from exile this turn, create a tapped Power Stone token. So, if you flip the card over, and let's say, I've had it numerous times where I've flipped a card out in my Outpost Siege, and I'm just like, I just don't want to play that card. It makes no sense for me this turn. Doesn't really help out the board state. It's actually worthless right now, so it just stays exiled. This card is going to give you a mana rock that you can use on a later turn, which is huge in my opinion. Now, granted, you can only use them to cast artifact spells, I do believe is how it's worded for Power Stone tokens. Yeah, add colorless. This mana can't be spent to cast a non-artifact spell. Yep, so it can only cast artifact spells, which could be kind of an annoyance. But having multiples out, there's always so many upside to it. And like I've said earlier, if you have a card that's doing double duty for you, why not play it over something that's not doing that same thing for you?
Right, and you can use the Power Stones to activate abilities.
Yes.
Permanent. So there is definitely motive to keep powering out those Power Stones from this card.
Agreed. I mean, worst case, and if you're in an artifact deck, because most good artifact decks are playing red, this is just going to be a powerhouse.
Yeah, this card is bonkers. I would probably run both, this and Outpost Siege. Why not?
I agreed. Having 2 sources of, an outlet that allows you to do that weird impulse draw thing is very, very good.
Yeah, this will be just something we see moving forward in red decks, I think. So yeah, this is
Yeah.
a great card.
Definitely going to go on my Mogus deck because it gives me better devotion towards Mogus because it gives you double red over single red of Outpost Siege. So,
Good call. Didn't even think about that.
all right. So, I was talking about how I had 2 red cards, so I'm just going to shoot out the second red card right away. And that is Bitter Reunion. This is another enchantment. It's 1 in a red. And this card is literally Tormenting Voice on a permanent. It says, when Bitter Reunion enters the battlefield, you may. So it says you may. So you don't even have to if you don't want to, which, honestly, in red, I'm going to do this filter draw all the time because you just need it. You discard a card and you draw 2 cards. So literally, Tormenting Voice on a permanent. So now everyone's asking me, okay, why would you do that? Well, because it has a sacrifice clause. So for 1, you sacrifice Bitter Reunion and creatures you control gain haste until end of turn. And for me, this just speaks volumes into the red theme, of wanting to give haste to things. So why not have something that you can slap down, let's say on turn 2, filter out to draw some cards, and now you have a haste outlet that you can sack at any point in time when you need it. And that's huge to me. I can't speak volumes, any more than I am right now about how good I think this card is as a card draw, and then into a haste outlet.
Yeah, this card's really good. Thank you for kind of walking me through your thought process, because when I saw it on your list, I'm like, I kind of understand why he likes this card, but I appreciate you explaining your thought process there. It also works for, like, permanent matters cards, such as Over the Top, or, I mean, I get
yes.
It's 1 in a red, but it's still a devotion feeder. It's an enchantment for Enchantress decks. Like, there's a lot more versatility than just having it be a Tormenting Voice, which is even better on top of it.
Yes. When I saw this card, I was like, no way, 2 mana to do this? Heck yeah. Because it fits so many other themes that, I was surprised to see something like this, honestly. I was expecting the sacrifice clause to be something like, deals 2 damage to something or whatever. But no, it's like, let's just give all your creatures haste. And I'm like, okay, that actually plays really well for commander purposes.
Yeah, big time. Chris, I only have a couple more cards left, so how about you keep going through a few on your list, and we'll get to the end of both of our lists here pretty quick.
Sure. Let's see. We haven't done black yet, have we?
No.
Not a single card in black. Do we not like black cards?
I have one, and you have one, so I'll do mine after yours.
Okay. So my first black card is a 4 mana instant, and it is called Hostile Negotiations. This card reads, exile the top 3 cards of your library in a face-down pile. Then exile the top 3 cards of your library in another face-down pile. So what we're doing right here is, 6 cards overall exiled, 3 cards in 2 piles. So you look at the cards in each pile. Then turn a pile of your choice face up. An opponent chooses one of those piles. So they're either going to choose the pile that they see that's face up or the pile that's face down. You put that pile into your hand and the other into your graveyard, and then you lose 3 life. Now, a lot of, players are not going to like this because you're going to lose 3 cards over this. They're going to get pitched away and all that stuff. And I do believe, they go into your graveyard, which is nice for black and everything. But I've noticed a lot of players don't like losing cards off the top of their deck. And the first thing that I tell people is, you are playing a 99 card deck. You need to dig as much as possible to have any reasonable chance of getting your deck to play on par with, a lot of other people. So why not have a 4 mana instant speed card that lets you dig 6? This also plays into one of those mind game cards, which I absolutely love. Because it's like, okay, which pile do I flip up and show them what they are, and then make them think that, oh, the pile that's face down could be worse, or vice versa type of thing. So then they're, they get all hemming and hawing and they don't know, and, then they choose one and they give it to you, and it could be the wrong choice, which is amazing. And sometimes they choose right, and sometimes it just doesn't matter what the choice is because they're going to get boned either way. But that's what I love about cards like this.
Yeah, I like the mind game aspect as well, especially with the opponent not knowing what's in that other pile. So it feels like it's a little more fun than Fact or Fiction. With Fact or Fiction, you the player that cast it is the one, having the mind game played against them, essentially, when your opponent split those cards into 2 piles. And I feel like this is kind of the reverse. You get to play the mind game against the opponent for once, because you know all 6 cards.
Yeah, because it's like, you kind of like, like giving them like facial expressions and kind of muttering to yourself, and then Okay, I suppose I'll reveal this pile and then see how they, they take that type of interaction and how they're going to approach it.
Yeah, great pick, Chris. I like this, and I'm sure we'll see it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, well, the way I look at it is literally 4 mana to dig 6 cards down.
Yep.
And I think that's super powerful at instant speed.
And it fills the graveyard. So right there, that plays into
Sure
a
does.
bunch of themes for black in Commander.
Yeah, because when I was first looking at this card, I had to reread it a few times because it says exile the cards, to begin with. I'm like, okay, do they stay exiled? And then, no, it literally says that you put the other pile into your graveyard and the pile that your opponent chooses into your hand.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a black card as well. This is one of a card from a cycle in this set, the command cycle, and I'm going to talk about...
a lot of them are good, too.
They're all pretty dang good, to be quite honest. I'm going to talk about Gix's command. This is 3 black for sorcery, and like all the commands, they're modular cards, and you get to choose 2 of the options. There are 4 total, so you can either put 2 +1/+1 counters on up to 1 creature. It gains lifelink until end of turn. You can destroy each creature with power 2 or less. You can return up to 2 creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. And then finally, each opponent sacrifices a creature with the highest power among creatures they control. I like this. It's a board wipe for little tiny tokens. It's a recursion card to get some creatures back into your hand. You can pump up your big creature and give it lifelink to, maybe get your life total up a little more. And then you can also just remove the biggest threat on your opponent's board. So I think this is very versatile. For 5 mana, it's right on par of where I would want it to be in this type of card, because Mystic Confluence was 5 mana. Most of these commands are between 3 and 6 mana. All these type of cycles are around this 5 mana slot. So out of all of them, this is my favorite one.
Yes, I like this a lot too. And I actually think that people are sleeping on the ability to return creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. I think it should be played a little bit more in decks because, those super powerful creatures that do get destroyed by board wipes, all that stuff, why not be able to bring them back? So having something like this that's modular that allows that is pretty good. The destroy, each opponent sacrifices a creature with the highest power among creatures they control. I think that is underutilized too. I don't know if people are going to use it that much, but I think that's going to be a really powerful aspect of this card.
Yeah, that's actually probably the mode I'm looking forward to casting the most. So I'm really stoked for this, but I also just kind of noticed while reading the card, none of these target.
No, they do not.
So you can put those +1/+1 counters on something that has Greaves on it, or it gets around Shroud. You don't target the cards in your graveyard, so you can maybe get around targeted card exiling effects that your opponents may play in response,
Yep, yeah, because since it doesn't target, they have to let the card resolve to know what you're going to get.
Yep. So yeah, this is my favorite.
Yeah, unless they throw an errata on this that says that it's targeting stuff, but who knows?
Right. But they're pretty good at not... Okay, never mind. I'm never going to say that because they aren't pretty good at a lot of things.
Oh, that's amusing.
What are your final couple cards here, Chris?
Let's see. So I got a white card and my legend yet, huh? And then our mutual card.
Our mutual card, yep.
Yep. So I will go with my white card. This is a 2 mana instant, so 1 and a white. It is called Calamity's Wake. It reads, exile all graveyards. Then, players can't cast non-creature spells this turn. Exile Calamity's Wake. The first thing I'm going to hear from everybody, in the comments of what we're doing is like, come on, Chris, this is just literally a rest in peace. But it's not as good because it doesn't always exile everything. Yeah, I know this. But the thing that I find intriguing about this is instant speed exile graveyards that also allows you to protect your board state on your turn. So no one can cast anything after this card's resolved. It literally turns off all non-creature spells. So you can just go ham in your white X type deck. Now, granted, they could have like activated abilities or that darn 4 mana rock that lets you cast creatures that flash or whatever, but whatever, so be it. I think that, white having these abilities to prevent, non-creature spells or, people casting spells on your turn type of effects are extremely powerful and they should be played more.
Yeah, I really love this card. 2 mana, best case scenario, worst case scenario, you're just getting rid of all the graveyards. Best case scenario, like you said, you are making sure you can continue on your turn doing something, or make sure your opponent can't do anything else non-creature wise on their turn if you're casting this maybe defensively.
Yeah, it could definitely, interrupt combo-based decks. Like, if they're casting all these, like, cantrips and stuff, and you're just like, you know what, I'm just going to exile all the graveyards, and then you can't cast anymore, so I think your turn's over, so let's just move on.
Right. Yeah, no, I like this. It's going to be one of those cards that just comes out of nowhere, I think. And it's going to be fun to have those moments play out.
It's also something, we preach a lot about, being able to control graveyards. So, and if you're definitely, white usually doesn't play too much with their graveyard. So this would definitely fit into that theme, and then controlling other people's graveyards.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Chris, who is you haven't really talked about a legendary creature, have you? You talked about a legendary artifact.
No, I said that I really liked the Mishra, mono red Mishra. I thought it was pretty cool, but it's very limited in what it does. It's definitely in the set theme of what you want to do with it, type of thing. The card that I want to talk about, though, this beautiful gal is definitely set on what she wants to do too, but I think it's really powerful. So we have Queen Kayla bin Krug, and Miss Kayla here is a 2/3 legendary human noble that has an activated ability of 4 colorless tap. Discard all cards in your hand, then draw that many cards. So we have a 2/3 for 3 that gives you a wheel ability. That's pretty good in my opinion, don't you think?
Yes.
Okay. Well, what if we gave you more to that ability? Oh no, what are we going to do? So, here's what the ability does. It says, you may choose an artifact or creature card with mana value 1 you discarded this way. Then, do the same for artifact or creature cards with mana value 2 and 3. Then return those cards to the battlefield. Only activate this ability only as a sorcery. So, only during your turn, discard your hand, return up to 3 things from your graveyard to the battlefield, and draw the money cards that you discarded. I think that is just super powerful.
I think it is powerful. I also think
super powerful. We're talking red, white, broken stuff here, man.
Yeah, but I think having the wheel on the body is very powerful. I think if you want to take advantage of the other portion of this, you kind of have to build your deck around it.
True.
Like, you constantly want to be hitting the 1, 2, and 3 mana value stuff in those categories. So I think it's not quite linear as maybe like a Yasan Wandering Bard deck, but I think a lot of these decks are probably going to look a little bit similar just because of the amount of creatures or artifacts in those mana value slots.
Yes, I believe it's going to be a very niche type deck where people are going to be all with the same cards in the decks, all that fun jazz. But the way I look at this card overall is, if I activate this ability, let's say I discard 5 cards, draw 5 cards. If I hit at least 1 card within her requirements that I discarded, that just paid for itself there.
Yep.
Because I'm already wheeling, because I needed the cards anyways, and it doesn't hit anybody else. It only hits me for the wheel. So, but then I'm also returning a card. That's just super powerful in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree, and I hope I'm proven wrong. I hope people just do cool stuff with this and they just want maybe a commander in the zone that will wield them and they don't care about the second half, and maybe they're going to be the people that care about all of it, but I'm really looking forward to seeing this get played.
Yep. The thing that I noticed about this card, though, is she doesn't say soldier on her, so it doesn't quite fit the soldier theme that this set is coming out with, but it still fits within the theme of a lot of the cards are saying, mana value 3 or less, some sort of ability happens with it.
Right.
So this is definitely going to play within that type of theme.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, Chris, we had 1 duplicate between our 2 lists.
I know, and I love this card. It's so awesome.
So go ahead and read the card.
Okay. This card is within the most powerful color in Magic, which is green.
Thank you.
And I actually had a talk with someone the other day about that, a newer player, and I told them that green was the most powerful color, and they're like, I don't believe you. And I'm like, no, it literally is. I'm like, I'm not lying to you, anything. And they're like, well, what about blue? They have all this counter magic and card draw stuff. And I'm like, dude, green draws just as much as blue does. But they have bigger creatures, and they have, protection stuff just like blue does. And I'm like, it's just a dumb color. So, we're in green, and this card is called Fade from History. It is a 2-colorless double green for a sorcery card that reads, each player who controls an artifact or enchantment creates a 2/2 green bear creature token. Just for you, Raph. I got you, bud. And then you destroy all artifacts and enchantments. Goodbye. Board wipe. See ya. Good gone.
I love it. I love it.
I love it too. The big thing I like about this is it is like a Beast Within-esque card where you get to play it and just everyone's like, oh, you just destroyed everything. It's like, well, I gave you a 2/2 out of it.
Yeah, for sure. And like, there's going to be the times where someone has a Parallel Lives or a doubling season out or something. So they're going to get two, they're going to get multiple bear tokens, but you're still destroying those cards once those bears hit the battlefield. So I still think this is a huge, huge win. You hit it right in the head. It takes a bit of the feel bads away just because you get to say, well, I'm giving you a bear versus casting something like, Tranquility. That's the one that just destroys all enchantments, right?
Yes, the 3-mana one, I think.
Yes.
Tranquility is.
Yes, it is. So I can't wait to play this card. I love it so much. Cute little bears on the art, almost like photorealistic, but painted. I like it. I think we're going to see this a lot.
I think so too, because having a mass wipe for artifacts and enchantments, I think is where the game's kind of pushing to that you need. Because if you've ever sat down and played in a game, I want everyone who's listening to actually pay attention to their next game, how powerful those permanents are to the game plan of everybody. Creatures are whatevers. Board wipes happen all the time. People aren't too, dead set on their creatures being the ones that are going to give them the value. No, it's the artifacts and enchantments that do that. So having this type of card that allows you to wipe the entire board out is huge. It's, like Merciless Eviction is a huge card that I always tell people when they're in the colors to play because it gives you that ability to get rid of all the artifacts and enchantments. So why not have a card like this? And it is also in the, the 4-mana range of a Wrath of God. So literally this just should be, Wrath of God for artifacts and enchantments is the way that I see it.
Yeah, I mean, this is why we preach stuff like Austere Command or, way back in the day, Farewell, yeah, or way back in the day, Return to Dust, even though there's better cards of that nowadays.
I think I still play Return to Dust.
So do I, because I have the foil promo, so... Yeah. No, this card is great. I've said it so many times, so I'm glad we both put it on our lists.
Yeah, like when I was reading through green, like I didn't see a whole lot of green cards that like jumped out at me. They were all, their usual green-esque, at that tier of good, but not like, oh my gosh, this is just mind-blowing good. Whereas when I saw this card, I was like, okay, this is going to be a card that I guarantee we're going to see in, 70% of green decks that really want it, because as a green player, you're usually not too hard on the artifacts and enchantments, whereas you're ramping out and playing creatures, so why not get rid of everyone else's value that you're not playing?
Yeah, for sure. Chris, so what are your overall thoughts about Brothers War when it comes to Commander? You a little more hyped on this than previous standard stuff?
Yes. Overall, I really like this set. Like I said earlier, I think white got a huge power boost in the set. And I don't want to say, like it's an overall power boost, but it's more of a linear power boost because they really focused in on like, we want you to be playing the lower CMC creatures, we want you to be in the soldier theme, and we're going to give you all this powerful stuff that goes with that. And I really like that because it almost seemed like white was the powerhouse color of the set. And we're always talking about how white is so weak and everything. So I hope that this actually is a precursor to what's actually coming in the future, where they're going to be focusing on the weaker colors a little bit more instead of giving the powerful colors even more powerful cards.
Yeah, I perfectly said. I love this set. It's one of the few standard sets lately that has gotten me like, ooh, I need to actually go buy packs or buy singles once the shop has cards, in the case. So I'm looking forward to picking some of these cards up and updating some of my decks with them. So yeah, I'm super stoked. I like the Commander decks. We didn't talk about those ourselves, but I like the Commander decks. There's some cool stuff in there. I'm a big fan of like the old border treatment that those decks are getting. Yeah, Brothers War is turning out to be a lot more than I hoped it was going to be, because I really wasn't super hyped on Dominaria United, so...
Agreed.
I'm really liking where this is going, and pretty soon we get to go see some Phyrexians.
Yes, that's going to be interesting. So, I mean, we're already seeing, like, this set was heavy into the artifact theme. Like, if you've looked through the spoilers, you know what I'm talking about. Like, pretty much every color has something that deals with artifacts within them, like sacrifice an artifact or create power stone tokens or create artifact, white artifact soldiers or something like that. So, I mean, it's all based around the artifacts. So that's just, I believe that that's what's coming up in Phyrexia, is we're going to be a mass artifact set, and then they're going to pull away from artifacts for a while.
Maybe. I could see that, but we will have to wait to find out.
Sure will.
If you want to reach out to us, you can hit us up on Twitter. You can find Dana at Dana Roach. You can find me at CMDR_Central_Max, and you can find Chris at YSquishy1. Our show is edited by Rafael Garcia. They can be found at Ursa Bearwalker, and our theme song is Retro Future Dirty, licensed by Kevin MacLeod, licensed via Creative Commons. This has been our Brothers War recap, and we will be back next week with a brand new show. Until then, I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.